Season 2 of the IV podcast is back, and it's Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy versus Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. How better can it be? What's going on, everyone? This is Vicente, and welcome back to the IV podcast, Season 2. Let's go. Izzy's not here today because she's busy with her job and everything. It's my day off, and this is a topic that I'm a little bit more passionate about. I'm not saying she doesn't love the character of Batman or Spider-Man, but she's not really familiar with Batman comics, and she didn't want to bullshit you guys. But without further ado, let's get into the topic. Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy are just some of the most unique and best comic book trilogies of all time. Not saying, the Iron Man trilogy and the Captain America trilogies aren't bad, and they're good, but when it comes to like superb, amazing, impressive, and just perfect trilogies, it's Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy that are just better. And my question for you guys is, which trilogy do you prefer? Which one is the best one? Who has the better movies? And if there's anything you can change about the trilogies, what would it be? And today we're going to discuss, the trilogies, starting with Batman Begins versus Spider-Man 1, and then Dark Knight versus Spider-Man 2, and then Dark Knight Rises versus Spider-Man 3. And I can't wait to get into it because I have a lot of positive feelings, a lot of positive things to say about both trilogies, but at the same time, they do have their problems. Now, I know both trilogies are a little bit more different. Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy is a little bit more realistic, whereas the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is, that comic book feel, but they're kind of similar in a lot of ways that people don't really expect it to be. For instance, Batman Begins and Spider-Man 1, they serve as a good origin story, and a lot of people overlook them, not because they're bad, but just because they have really good sequels and just have a lot of story that you kind of forget about the first one. And then with The Dark Knight and Spider-Man 2, I'm going to say they're better than the first one. And it's rare when a sequel, regardless of what genre, whether it's a comic book genre, horror genre, action genre, is when a sequel is better than the first movie, but they blew away everyone's expectations. And then here comes the third movie in the trilogy where you either love it or hate it. Now, for me, I don't mind Dark Knight Rises, but I think that should have been a two-parter movie. I have a lot of problems with Bane as a villain. Tom Hardy did good, but he just wasn't intimidating enough, which you can't really blame on him because Heath Ledger's Joker set a really high bar. But besides that, just the story, I just feel like it's convoluted, it's just overcrowded, and it would have been better as a two-parter. In Spider-Man 3, oh boy, that one, you either love it or you hate it. I'm mixed on Spider-Man 3. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, and for what it's worth, I think it is a good ending to a trilogy, but that movie just had so much going on, and it happens when a studio kept interfering with Sam Raimi's movie. He didn't want to do Venom. He just wanted to keep it Sandman and New Goblin because he wasn't a fan of Venom. But for what it's worth, Sam Raimi did try his best to give us a good version of Venom. But like I said, Spider-Man 3 is so crowded. There's people who love it. And if you love it and it's your favorite one, more power to you. If you hate it, I can't say I blame you. It is crowded. And with Dark Knight Rises too, like I said, it's a movie in the Batman community that I'm aware of that not a lot of Batman fans like, It's just it's weird to them. But without further ado, let's get into the first movies, Batman Begins and Spider-Man 1. Starting off with Batman Begins versus Spider-Man 1. Now, both movies are underrated origin stories. I feel like a lot of people overlook the first movies in those specific trilogies because you just got good sequels. But if I'm going to be honest, I kind of prefer... I don't prefer, but I do think that Spider-Man 1 is a better origin story than Batman Begins. And yes, I know Spider-Man 1 has a lot of cringy dialogue. Like for instance, I'm going to play a clip right now.
I surrender! Oh boy.
You see what I mean? Like, I know Sam Raimi had something special going on with that first movie. He probably knew the dialogue was so cheesy, but it made for a good comic book movie. And just, you got to understand that, yes, we've had Blade. We had the first X-Men movies, and they were good Marvel movies. But the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire literally helped launch a lot of Marvel movies that we know now. And I'm a firm believer that if the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire failed, I really don't think we'd be having a lot of these characters on the big screen. Now, this isn't a knockoff any previous comic book movies that were big, like Christopher Reeve's Superman movie, Batman 1989 with Michael Keaton, and, Blade and X-Men. But, like I said, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was just something special. It was Marvel's flagship character, if you get what I'm trying to say. And with Tobey Maguire being a lot of people's favorite Spider-Man, it's kind of hard to argue that movie in particular holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts. And we get fucking William Dafoe as Green Goblin, arguably one of the top 5 best villains in cinema history. I mean, shit, dude. Fucking everyone was hyped for his return in No Way Home. He was just so fucking badass. He was amazing. He was cool. And you get a great supporting cast from Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane. Yes, her and Tobey Maguire dated for a little bit, I think, during the production of the first Spider-Man movie, but they had that good chemistry, and even when they broke up, they were still good friends, and they had that good chemistry. And you get James Franco as Harry Osborn, which, I feel like a lot of people overlook, because I do think he is a good Harry Osborn, definitely better than the one we got in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we get fucking J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. You can't beat that. You literally cannot beat J.K. Simmons. That's another one that's just literally perfect. Just perfect casting right there. And you get this great supporting cast from Betty Brant and just workers at the Daily Bugle. Just everyone, every side character in this movie, including the New York characters, there's New York citizens, even make good background characters. It feels like the city of New York is just alive and that this character of Spider-Man is really there. And so it kind of helps broaden the whole Spider-Man movie. But like I said, my only things with this movie in particular is that it hasn't really aged well. Like I said, the cheesy dialogue and just like, there's just some wonky stuff. But like I said, this is a product of the early 2000s, where everything was just a little cheesy. Comic book movies were kind of finding their footing and movie history. And so I can't really knock it off of that. But when I do hear, the cheesy dialogue in this movie, I'm just like, that's like some MCU writing now. I mean, now it'd probably be funny, but to me, it's so cringy. Maybe people might have liked it if it came out today, but I don't know. I feel like people would have hated it more than they did back then. But another thing I love, and I got to mention it, the soundtrack to this Spider-Man movie, and just for the whole trilogy in general. I can't play it because, YouTube's going to be stupid and fucking copyright this video. But everyone knows his theme by heart. You can just play it randomly on a random city block, and people are going to know who Spider-Man is just by playing Tobey Maguire's theme. But yeah, I think it's the best origin story when it comes to a superhero movie, and that's just my personal preference. And now with Batman Begins, 2005, this movie literally saved the character of Batman. You gotta understand, with Joel Schumacher releasing Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, it kind of killed the character of Batman for a little bit. Warner Brothers and DC, after the years, they were going to make another Joel Schumacher Batman movie that was going to have Nicolas Cage as the Scarecrow and bring back Jack Nicholson as the Joker. But then with the reception and the box office with Batman and Robin, people just did not take Batman seriously at all. And then for a while they tried making other movies. I know they tried making a Batman versus Superman movie back then. I think like 2002, 2003, that was their release date, as far as to my knowledge. But just the character of Batman was dead in cinema history. Just no one was taking him seriously. And then here comes good old Christopher Nolan, and he delivers us the fucking greatest, one of the greatest Batmans on screen. And I would argue one of the best Batman movies. I would say at least in top 3. It's good. Like I said, Batman Begins does get overlooked a lot. Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne and Batman, literally perfect. He is my favorite Bruce Wayne. Next thing, I didn't enjoy Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne and Ben Affleck. Those are in my top 3 when it comes to Bruce Wayne portrayals. But not Christopher Nolan, but Christian Bale as Batman was just amazing. Perfect. He's everything you'd want in a Bruce Wayne. And as Batman, I'm not gonna lie, I do like his voice in the first movie. Yeah, it still has that gruffy voice, but it also doesn't sound like, like it's a really bad sore throat, if you get what I'm trying to say. And then I'm going to talk about his voice a little bit in The Dark Knight, because it is one of my negatives. I feel like it just sounds a little too weird, and sometimes I can hardly understand it. But Batman Begins, we get a pretty good origin story, and what I like about Batman Begins is that it doesn't just start off with the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. We kind of get a flash forward to the future where he's at, trying to stop criminals, and then he's found by Ra's al Ghul, who's played by one of the greatest actors ever, Liam Neeson, fucking Qui-Gon Jinn. You can't go wrong with that. And he's recruiting to the Legion of Shadows, and Ra's al Ghul, I think his name is Kevin in the movie. That's his like alias or alter ego or whatever. His disguise name. And Bruce tells him about the murder of his parents, and then we get a flashback to where Bruce was a kid, where he fell into a hole, playing around with Rachel Dawes, and bats attack him. And it wasn't until his father comes in and he gives him this fucking quote: "Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up." I probably just butchered that line, but you get what I'm trying to say. And it's cool. I think that's an interesting concept. And we get the infamous murders of the Wayne parents, and it's just so sad. And then, I'm not going to lie, I think I prefer this cast of characters over the first Spider-Man movie. And I know I just praised the first cast of the first Spider-Man movie, but I would say this is a stronger cast. And it helps because there is really good dialogue. I mean, come on, Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. Well, he's not Commissioner Gordon in this movie. He's Jim Gordon. But that's his perfect casting. That's someone who I feel like doesn't get enough appreciation. That's another one that gets really, really overlooked. And we get fucking Michael Caine as Alfred Pennyworth. He is my favorite Alfred. I wouldn't say he's underrated, but he's probably the best Alfred Pennyworth. Not trying to knock off any other actors that have played Alfred Pennyworth, especially the new one, Andy Serkis. But Michael Caine, he's someone that, yeah, he could be a butler in real life. He's probably, he's a secret badass, but he's a butler. He's a badass butler too. But I do like the villains in this movie, Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow. There is a lot of cool effects in this movie, especially Scarecrow's fear gas. There's a clip I'm going to show right now to where Batman uses the fear gas on Scarecrow, and Scarecrow sees this fucking disturbing image of Batman. But that's probably how criminals see Batman, as a creature of the night. And that's one of the few things that is comic accurate in this movie, is that criminals do fear Batman. They see him as a monster. They don't know who he is. They don't know what he is. I know in this movie, in this trilogy in particular, it's set in a realistic world, but the criminals are scared of Batman. That's probably how they see him. But it's a good movie. The dialogue is great, and it's any Christopher Nolan movie is going to be amazing when it comes to it. But when it comes down to it, I know I just said Spider-Man 1 is a better origin movie, but I'd be lying to myself. I kind of do prefer Batman Begins. And yes, I know, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, more so than a Batman fan. But when you take off nostalgia glasses, yes, Spider-Man is a better origin story, but the better movie, I'm going to give it to Batman Begins. There's just a lot of cool shots in this movie, a lot of practical effects. Christian Bale's Batman suit in this movie, I think it's pretty cool. Granted, yes, it has that old, you can't turn his neck and he looks very stiff, but it's pretty good for his time. And it literally saved the Batman character in cinema, and just Batman in general. So that's why I gotta say it's a better movie, because it literally saved Batman from being the laughing stock. And so if I had to rate these movies, I would give Batman Begins a good 9.5 out of 10. Really good movie. And it literally saved the character of Batman for a lot of DC fans. And for Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire, like I said, I love it, but it's that dialogue and just a lot of cheesy stuff that kind of hold it back, where I gotta give it, an 8.9 out of 10. I still love it. It's the first movie I seen when I was a kid in cinema that I remember. But Batman Begins is the better movie than Spider-Man 1. And now, our second movies in each trilogy, The Dark Knight versus Spider-Man 2. I'm just going to get out of the way, guys. I think both movies are perfect. I think there isn't a lot of cons I have with these movies. They're just perfect. Now, if I really looked into it, are there cons in the movies? Yes, but I'll probably just overlook them. Just because the first movie set the bar in that trilogy. And here's the bar for the first movie in each trilogy. Here it goes in the sequel. It's just amazing. The Dark Knight, you get one of the best, if not the best, cinema villain in history. Heath Ledger as the Joker. And I remember as a kid, just seeing it on the news, people were, sending death threats to Heath Ledger, hate mail, just everything to Warner Brothers, DC, and to the cast of The Dark Knight, because it's Heath Ledger with his movies that he did, Brokeback Mountain and all that stuff. But the marketing for this movie, I remember as a kid, fucking scared me. Heath Ledger's Joker is one scary ass dude. He's just so terrifying, but a villain that people overlook in this movie is Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face. He's probably one of my favorite Batman villains. I'd say he's my second favorite Batman villain, just because we get his origin story in the Batman The Long Halloween comic book storyline. That's where Harvey Dent finally becomes Two-Face. So, you know, I kind of have a little bias when it comes to Harvey Dent being my second favorite villain in DC, just because I am a fan of The Long Halloween. But The Dark Knight, it blew everyone's expectations. It was perfect. It's like, where can you go with the first movie, where the first movie literally teased the Joker coming to the sequel, and it's like, who are you going to find that can literally elevate the character of the Joker and bring him to high grounds? Because Jack Nicholson was the Joker before Heath Ledger, and Jack Nicholson was a good Joker. He was my favorite for a while until I saw Heath Ledger. And just, oh man, the action in this movie, the cinematography, the darkness inside Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne, to where he wants to give up being Batman because he wants Harvey Dent to take over, because the people of Gotham need a white knight. They need that light, a beacon of hope in Gotham, and not some vigilante, some dark vigilante that holds a darkness and grudge towards the criminals of Gotham. And then everything goes to shit in this movie. Like, it just goes crazy in a good way, to where, you know, Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face. Rachel Dawes dies. She gets recasted. Katie Holmes played Rachel Dawes in Batman Begins, but then she was married to Tom Cruise. Rumor has it that Tom Cruise didn't want her to return for the sequel. I don't know why. We may never know why she didn't return and why she got recasted. But then she's recasted by Maggie Gyllenhaal, Jake Gyllenhaal's sister. And I would say she does a pretty good job. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? But I would say, and I ask a lot of people this, as much as The Dark Knight is praised, do you love it because it is a Batman story? Or do you love it because Heath Ledger's Joker literally carried that movie? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Heath Ledger's Joker is amazing. You can't really beat that character in that movie. And Christian Bale's Batman and Bruce Wayne is pretty good in this movie. Like, he does a better job at being Batman and Bruce Wayne in this movie than he does in Batman Begins. He's becoming more into that handsome philanthropist, billionaire playboy. But Heath Ledger's Joker was just a monster in this movie. He was just terrifying in his own right. And then a lot of people do overlook Two-Face in this movie because of Joker. But there is a small community in the Batman fandom that do appreciate this version of Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, and I'm glad there are people who recognize it. And this movie's ending has a very, very Empire Strikes Back type of ending, to where, yes, they took down the Joker, but at what cost? Because in the end, Batman won the battle, but Joker won the war. He did what he did. He was able to accomplish it. Yes, he tried breaking Batman into killing, but once he realized Batman was incorruptible, he went to Gotham's White Knight, their beacon of light and hope in the city of Gotham, and he turned him into a murderer, a criminal. And so in the end, the Joker won, and to protect Harvey Dent's act, to keep all the criminals locked up, Batman takes responsibility for the deaths of the cops and a lot of people that Harvey killed. And it's just so sad, because you know the truth, and that's why I say it's very Empire Strikes Back, to where, yes, Batman won, but the Joker won the war, and now they have to live with him, and Commissioner Gordon and his family have to live with the secret of Batman being innocent and Harvey Dent being the villain. And if that doesn't bring a tear to your eye, I don't know what will. And now moving on to Spider-Man 2. This is my favorite Spider-Man movie. I used to say Across the Spider-Verse was my favorite Spider-Man movie, but what makes Spider-Man 2 one of the greatest comic book movies of all time is that not only is it a good Spider-Man movie, but it's also a good Peter Parker movie. And I've always said this to a lot of Spider-Man fans. A good Spider-Man story is going to make Peter Parker's story a really good story as well. Because as we see him in Spider-Man 2, he's trying to juggle responsibilities, adult life, while trying to keep up his heroics as Spider-Man. And it introduces him to the concept of the Parker luck, as I call it. So the Parker luck is essentially this. Whatever good Spider-Man does is bad for Peter Parker. For instance, Spider-Man may stop a robbery. He stopped car thieves during the movie. We're going to show the clip right now. He stopped those car thieves, but then he's late to Mary Jane's play as Peter Parker, and he's not allowed entry, and Mary Jane is thinking that Peter doesn't care. But when Peter Parker does something good, like he shows up on time for his class and gets the A, in that time to where he ignored crime as Spider-Man, those thieves could have robbed a bank, robbed someone or killed someone, who knows. And so that's why I call it the Parker luck, because whatever good Spider-Man does is bad for Peter, but whatever good happens for Peter is bad for Spider-Man. It's almost like a curse. And what I like in this movie is that it does a realistic take on Spider-Man losing his powers, because during the movie he's conflicted. He doesn't know if he wants to be Spider-Man. The scene I'm going to show right now is him saying Uncle Ben in this movie, and he's telling Uncle Ben, I'm Spider-Man no more. And it's sad because he doesn't want to live with this curse. I mean, yes, he's doing good as Spider-Man, but he wants a good life as well. And it's just so sad. And we get another great comic book villain. Not as good as Heath Ledger's Joker, but like I said, Heath Ledger's Joker was just a whole nother fucking level. We get Alfred Molina, I'm pretty sure I said that right, as Otto Octavius, aka Dr. Octopus, Doc Ock, however you want to say it. He is good. I'm definitely saying he's at least in top 10 when it comes to comic book movies and cinema. He's so good. His role in this movie is kind of like Frankenstein, to where he's this brilliant scientist. He has ambition. He wants to change the world and do good for mankind. Like he says in the movie, we're going to show the clip right now.
Intelligence is not a privilege, it's a gift. And you use it for the good of mankind.
Wife Rosie to the tragic accident when the fusion reaction son just fucking starts to go haywire, and it becomes this monster. And the scene right now I'm going to show, when he's in the hospital, holy crap, that's just Sam Raimi magic. That's something that would come out of Evil Dead or one of his horror movies, and it's just so good. And when he says no and his arms rise up, literally like Frankenstein, he's so good. He's just broken. I wouldn't say he's pure evil. He's a broken soul, to where he wanted to do good and he still wants to do good. But it's his pride that's fucking him over, because he still thinks he can make that fusion reactor. He still thinks that, oh no, it was perfect, let me do it again. And he's trying to get money for it, and he's trying to get another fusion reaction thing from Harry Osborn. And so while his ambitions are a pure heart, it's his pride that's still screwing him over. And we get another side story, which I love. Harry Osborn is on the hunt for Spider-Man, because he thinks in the first Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man killed his dad, Norman Osborn, aka Green Goblin, who I forgot to mention, great fucking villain too, loved him. And then finally, Harry Osborn finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So the guy, the vigilante, the masked hero that Harry Osborn is trying to go after is literally his best friend. And I just love that acting, to where Harry Osborn is shocked. And I remember as a kid when I saw the trailer and they showed that scene to where Harry Osborn's going to pull off the mask, I thought for sure there was going to be somehow that Peter does something last minute to protect his identity, but no. He finds out in this movie, and it's surprising, and he's so shocked. But then once Peter tells Harry that they need to work together to go save Mary Jane, to tell him where Otto went, Harry puts aside his hatred for now, and he's conflicted because Peter Parker is his best friend. And then he sees an hallucination of Norman Osborn in the mirror, and it shows that Harry Osborn's going crazy just like his dad. It could be an hallucination, but I think that Harry Osborn is going crazy. He breaks the mirror and he discovers the Green Goblin lair, all the gliders, suits, pumpkin bombs. It's just, oh man. It's a shame what happened with the new Goblin in Spider-Man 3, where he's not bad, but I also kind of do have a problem with it, because I think there are things he should have done better. But back to Spider-Man 2. And like I said, not only is this a good Spider-Man movie, it's a good Peter Parker movie. We see Peter Parker trying to just be a normal dude. Trying to be there for Mary Jane, trying to be there for Aunt May, and him struggling to pay his rent, him struggling with money, trying to keep a job because we see him get fired from being a pizza delivery guy, and him not making enough cash at the Daily Bugle. It sucks. And that's something that a lot of people can relate to. Responsibilities, money problems, money struggles, paying bills, it's all that stuff. And so when you take the character of Peter Parker and humanize him to where even just the average comic book reader or average moviegoer can relate to the character, you're doing a fucking good job at doing it. Because this is a comfort movie for me, to where if I'm ever just thinking about life, this is a movie I just put on, and it helps me relate to the character of Peter Parker, because it makes you think, always just a dude like me, and this isn't a knockoff on Bruce Wayne, you know, but he is a billionaire, and it's hard to kind of relate to a billionaire. In our story, so where Bruce Wayne is humanized, you know, humanized to like a normal dude. But when it comes down to it, Peter Parker is more relatable than Bruce Wayne. And Spider-Man 2 has some of the greatest action in the Spider-Man Sam Raimi trilogy. From the clock tower scene, the bank scene, from Peter Parker stopping a train, it's just awesome. I love it. I love it. You know, just some of the citizens of New York carrying Spider-Man, giving him back his mask, and he tried to defend him from Doc Ock. And even though it fails, they still protect him. It's like in the first movie to where Green Goblin was close to killing Spider-Man. All the citizens of New York were just throwing stuff at the Green Goblin, giving Spider-Man enough time to save Mary Jane and the kids and the compartment. I just love it. It brings, like I said, it makes the city of New York feel alive when you even make the citizens like a main focal point in the storyline of a Spider-Man story. And then there is a scene in this movie which fucking just brings a tear to my heart. It's personal to me. And so when Mary Jane finally finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Peter tells her, you know why we can't be together. Because I'm always going to have enemies and I can't have you get hurt. You know, I'll always love you, but I'm always going to be Spider-Man. And I have to put the Peter Parker side of me away because I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want my villains coming after you. And you see Mary Jane is hurt. And as Spider-Man is luring down Mary Jane, and she goes to Jonah Jameson's son, because she's going to marry his son. And they're embracing and hugging. And then she looks off to the side and she sees Peter just looking at her. And they both exchange the sad look. And Spider-Man swings into the night away. Not as Spider-Man, but as Peter Parker. Because although he loves Mary Jane, he knows that if he's with her, she's going to be in danger. And that, to me, chef's kiss, perfection. And then literally the last 10 minutes of the movie, Mary Jane ditches her fiance on their wedding day, which is kind of like a little fucked up. And that's the one thing I don't like about Mary Jane in this trilogy, is that she seems like a gold digger. I know that's not the intent, but holy crap, the amount of time she cheated on a lot of dudes in this trilogy is this kind of mind-baffling to me. It's kind of like, oh damn, it's fucked up. And then she goes to Peter's apartment and confronts him and says, I know you don't want me to be in your life, but I love you, and I know you love me, and I'm willing to take those risks with you, yada yada yada, you know, love stuff. And then she tells Peter the infamous Mary Jane line, go get him, Tiger. And Spider-Man just swings away with a helicopter, stopping the next crime. Perfect ending to a perfect sequel. Now, Dark Knight and Spider-Man 2, fucking some of the best villains, some of the best action pieces, set action, best cinematography, everything. But which one is the better movie? Which one is the better sequel? And guys, I can't decide. I don't know which one. I don't. You know, a part of me wants to say The Dark Knight. But like I said, do people really like it because of the Batman story? Or do they like it because of Heath Ledger's Joker? Rest in peace, Heath Ledger. But then you get Spider-Man 2 to where it literally was considered the best sequel of all time. You know, if I really had to choose, I am going to take Spider-Man 2 over Dark Knight. But like I said, there are days where I prefer The Dark Knight over Spider-Man 2. But like I said, it's a hard toss-up. But, you know, these last movies in the trilogy, yeah, let's talk about them. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are down to the last movies in their respective trilogies. The Dark Knight Rises versus Spider-Man 3. And a lot of people are mixed on these movies. Some love it, some hate it. Some think the movies are just okay. I'm not going to lie. I do prefer Spider-Man 3 over Dark Knight Rises, but it's not by that much. Now, Dark Knight Rises, this is a movie to where it had to be phenomenal. It had to be better than The Dark Knight. But with the unfortunate passing of Heath Ledger, rest in peace, fucking the best Joker we'll ever get, how can you make a third movie? Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale weren't sure if they were going to make a third movie. And with the passing, like I said, with the passing of Heath Ledger, who was going to play an important part and a big part in the last movie, how can you do it? What villain and what actor can you get that's going to be the same, if not better, than Heath Ledger's Joker? And then comes Tom Hardy's Bane, and you know, I'm not trying to hate on Tom Hardy. I do think he does give a good performance as Bane, you know, for a realistic take on Bane. But he just seems like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. And like I said, it is hard because Heath Ledger's Joker did set really high expectations. But then, like I said, Tom Hardy's Bane is just whatever to me. His whole story is just weird. And then all of a sudden, we get a secondary villain during the last 15 minutes of Dark Knight Rises. Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia al Ghul. And it's like, damn, so now we have another villain. I know she was a child that escaped from the Lazarus pit. And we're just starting to this whole thing. And I know, you know, we had Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face during, like, what, the last 20 minutes. But at least we were with him during the entirety of the film. And he built up to that character turning into Two-Face. With Talia al Ghul, she uses a fake name. And it's just like, whatever, you know. But we get the introduction of Anne Hathaway as Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman, and she's a pretty good Catwoman. I like her. Even though Michelle Pfeiffer will always be my favorite Catwoman, that's his personal preference. Anne Hathaway as Catwoman is pretty good. I like it. And this movie takes a lot of inspiration from The Dark Knight Returns, because in this movie they pass a law, the Harvey Dent Act, to where a lot of criminals are locked up, and Gotham has been getting rid of crime and criminals for, like, I think the last 10 years in that timeline. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so Bruce Wayne is just retired as Batman. He sees no point. And then here comes the infamous Bane causing havoc and chaos in Gotham. He kills the mayor, Mayor Garcia, and he's taking away the cops, all that stuff. He's basically causing chaos and destruction in Gotham. And here comes Bruce Wayne returning as Batman, but his body is just beat, you know. His leg is effed up, his knee's done. He has all these scars and injuries from his younger days as Batman. And then we get the infamous scene of Bane just breaking Batman's back, and holy crap, it's fucking brutal. You know, Bruce Wayne gets his ass beat as Batman the first time. You know, Bane just knows. You know, Bane tells him, oh, you think the darkness is your ally? I was born in it, dude. Like, you just adopted it. And then he knows where he's at in the darkness, and just whips his fucking ass. And then we see Bruce Wayne in the realistic take of the Lazarus Pit. And I do like that aspect of the movie. I like how they give a realistic take of the Lazarus Pit. And so the Lazarus Pit in this movie is just filled with criminals, murderers, just everyone you can think of. And so their way of the Lazarus Pit is you have to make this jump to earn your freedom, but you have to fear death. You have to fear death and fear everything. But when you complete the jump and get out of the Lazarus Pit, you become a whole new person, a brand new man or woman, you know. Whereas in the comic books, you do come back as a new person because it resurrects you. So in a way, when Bruce Wayne makes that jump in the Lazarus Pit, the Dark Knight rises. It's not when he comes back to Gotham and it's stopping crime, because that's just Bruce Wayne putting on a suit. But when Bruce Wayne emerges from the Lazarus Pit, that's when the Dark Knight rises. And, you know, I just love that scene because you hear, you know, the people in the Lazarus Pit chant for him. They're cheering him on. And when he makes that final jump, I just remember the whole movie theater just applauding, going crazy. And it's cool. My only issue with this movie, like I said, is Bane and Talia al Ghul, and not even that. Those are big problems. My biggest problem is that this movie should have been a two-parter. I would have liked it if this movie ended on Bruce Wayne escaping from the Lazarus Pit, and then part 2 could have been Bruce Wayne making his way back to Gotham, and then finally we get an all-out battle for the city of Gotham for the last movie, which to me would have been a lot better because you could have added in more story, and you could have set up the proper way of Talia al Ghul to where, you know, yeah, okay, she's a secondary villain, but now we get a whole nother movie with Talia al Ghul being this whole another villain, and it would have added a little bit more extra layer to it. But like I said, Christopher Nolan just kind of wanted to be done with this trilogy, you know, and just, I do like this movie, but at the same time, it's whatever to me. I wouldn't say it's the weakest in this trilogy, but it's one to where it's like, you know, I can live without it. And so this movie ends with the death of the Batman. Lucius Fox, played by the brilliant Morgan Freeman, believes Bruce Wayne is dead. Basically, the entirety of Gotham believe Bruce Wayne is dead. Earlier in the movie, Bane says a speech that Commissioner Gordon had saved, that was going to explain the real reasoning behind the murders and the Dark Knight was caused by Harvey Dent. But then Bane finds it, he tells the speech, yada yada yada, all the criminals get released and all that stuff. And then the people of Gotham find out Batman was their savior. And so when Batman saves the city from being blown up by a nuke, they build him a statue, and in the end, he was the one that they needed. He was a hero that Gotham needed, not the one it wanted necessarily, but the one it needed to be safe. So he became their beacon of hope. And earlier in the movie, Alfred tells Bruce that he's always had a dream of sitting at a cafe, and across from him was going to be Bruce with the wife and kids. And that was his dream for Bruce Wayne. But Bruce Wayne knew that as long as the Batman was still around, he was never going to have that life. And so we see Alfred mourning because he believes Bruce Wayne is dead. And then he goes to a cafe in Italy and he's relaxing. And all of a sudden, he sees Bruce Wayne at the cafe with Selina Kyle. And they look at each other and nod. And to me, I just love it. And then there's another character playing this movie. Another character in this movie, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's the character of John Blake, but as a Easter egg and nod to the comics, his real name is Robin, which I think his name should have been revealed as Dick Grayson. That would have been fucking cool. And so this movie ends on John Blake inheriting the Batcave and pretty much all the equipment that Bruce Wayne used. But, Christopher Nolan didn't want to make another Batman movie, so we literally get the biggest tease of a possible Nightwing adaptation in the Christopher Nolan universe. But for what it's worth, I do think this is a satisfying conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy. Could have been better, yes. Should have been a two-parter, also yes. But for what it's worth, I can enjoy it. And now, the last movie, Spider-Man 3. Holy crap. Like the Dark Knight, how do you make another great fucking sequel when you have Spider-Man 2 literally set the expectations in this trilogy? And they tried, ladies and gentlemen, but Sony wanted to be Sony and interfere with Sam Raimi's vision for Spider-Man 3 because he didn't want to do the character of Venom. He just felt like he was just whatever, he was just a copy of Spider-Man. He wanted to do the classic villains that Sam Raimi loved, but then Sam Raimi, started learning about the character of Venom and Eddie Brock, and he loved him. He was like, fine, whatever, because Avi Arad, who was the head of the Spider-Man movies at Sony, wanted Venom because the fans wanted Venom, and I was one of those fans as a kid who wanted to see Venom, but I would not mind it. Sure, we could have used someone like Electro or Kurt Connors, whose character was built up to be the Lizard. They were hinting at it throughout the whole fucking trilogy. That's one of the things I wish they would have done, is make Kurt Connors the Lizard in that trilogy. But this movie's just so overcrowded. Like, it's too many villains, and I know there's movies that do a lot of villains, but this is another movie that should have been a two-parter, to where you can build a character of Eddie Brock, because Eddie Brock and Venom are just treated as a side character in this movie. And like I said, granted, Sam Raimi didn't want to do the Eddie Brock and Venom character because he just never found him appealing or interesting, which is his personal preference. I don't hold it against him. But he was forced to put him in. And if I was Sam Raimi, I would have said, look, let me do Sandman and New Goblin and Spider-Man 3 Part 1. That way I can build up the character of Venom and Eddie Brock to where the ending could be Peter getting rid of the suit, and then the post-credit scene could be Eddie Brock getting the Venom symbiote. That way Spider-Man 3 Part 2 could be all-out Venom versus Spider-Man throughout the city of New York. To me, that would have been the better option. But what we get is just a mess. It's not as good as Spider-Man 2. It's still a good sequel, but it's just it's just something that I'm just like, whatever. Harry Osborn, throughout this whole trilogy, he was built up to be an antagonist to Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And then when we get New Goblin, there's nothing really interesting about him. His suit is whatever, and James Franco does what he can with this whole Harry Osborn as New Goblin thing. And then they do this whole other side story to where, Harry gets amnesia because he gets hit in the head. And then they play around with is he going to remember? Will he not remember? Are they going to have him have his memories return until another movie or what? And it feels like a whole mess. The only standout villain in this movie was Sandman. He was good. I love his story, but what I don't like is how he was Uncle Ben's killer. I think that was one of the dumbest things he could have done, because it kind of erases that moment in Spider-Man 1 to where Peter Parker, he didn't push out Uncle Ben's killer out the window, but he made him fall out, and then all of a sudden, it's just a dumb thing. It's one of the dumbest retcons you could do, because it takes away a lot what makes the first movie special. And so now Spider-Man's built on this vengeance to hunt down the Sandman, Flint Marko, and then he gets a symbiote suit. And while I do like the symbiote in this movie, I think it's done well. What I don't like is that it just feels like a mindless beast, and that's not the symbiote, because the symbiote is an actual organism. It has feelings, and it can talk like me and you. And that's what the Venom movie did really good, is that it gave the Venom symbiote a personality as if it was a whole nother character, because the symbiotes are entirely their characters. They know how to talk. They have feelings. But in this movie, they just treat it like it's a mindless beast. And so it would have been cool if he heard the symbiote talk to Peter Parker, like tell him like, hey, I come from this world where symbiotes rule, not like a big origin story, but like a little glimpse into the, planet of the symbiotes, just stuff like that. Throughout the movie, we see, and then throughout the movie, when Peter does his actions, I wish we could see the symbiote kind of talk in Peter's head and make Peter do these things, and then Peter realizes that, you're bad for me. We do get that. But it would have been an interesting layer if we had the symbiote kind of live in his head, like another mind in his head, another voice. And then when Eddie Brock finally becomes Venom, listen, guys, I don't like this Venom. I don't like this version of Venom. Yes, I can live with it. I can accept it. But I don't like it. He says I instead of we. The Venom design looks pretty cool, but he doesn't have his iconic tongue out. It basically, it's just a carbon copy of Spider-Man, but more monsters. And that was Sam Raimi's intention. And I do love Topher Grace, but I just think he was the wrong actor for Venom. But Sam Raimi wanted to do an exact copy of a dark side of Peter Parker. Basically, Topher Grace is Eddie Brock in his movie. It says, what if Peter Parker never learned about responsibilities? And then you get this version of Eddie Brock who's just careless and does not give a fuck in the world. And then this movie just kind of fucks up the character of MJ, because yeah, she's with Peter, and then she's getting mad at Peter for getting recognized and all that stuff, but it's like, you're kind of being an a-hole about it too. How is it his fault that he's getting recognized as Spider-Man? And then she fucking kisses Harry Osborn, which I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're a gold digger, dude. And yeah, she leaves and realizes what she did, all that stuff. But then Peter Parker is kind of an asshole too in this movie, because he's like making it all about him. Like I said, like, this is why I don't really like romance and a lot of stuff, because it can either make it really good or make it bad. And I'm not saying it was horrible, but it kind of kills the movie for me. It's like, okay, la chingada way. Like, we've been through this already. Like, how many times are we gonna have the same fucking argument? But I do like the final battle at the construction site. I think it's well done. I just wish Venom and Eddie Brock weren't a side character in this movie, because they're too big of a character to have him as a side character. Not villains like the Shocker, Rhino, or Scorpion, or Mysterio, to where you can kind of have him as a side villain and get away with it. Eddie Brock and Venom need their own movie. With Spider-Man to make him a threat. And that's why I said Spider-Man 3 should have been a two-parter, to where you could have ended part 1 with Peter killing Sandman and Harry Osborn, and he realizes what the symbiote did. And then he gets rid of it, and in post-credit scene, Eddie Brock gets a Venom symbiote because of his hatred, and it's Spider-Man 3 Part 2, a la Spider-Man versus Venom. But I do like in this movie is that the message is forgiveness, and that's one of the things I do love about the Sam Raimi trilogy, is that there's always subliminal messages in these movies that relate to real life, and this one is forgiveness, because Peter Parker does forgive Flint Marko for killing his Uncle Ben, because Flint said it was an accident that, his Uncle Ben tried telling Flint just to go home and was trying to help him. But like I said, Spider-Man 3 is a mess, but it's a fun mess to where, I can still enjoy it, but holy crap, there's so much more they could have done with this movie. Another thing I hate in this movie is Harry's butler literally tells Harry in this last movie, the blade that killed your father came from his glider. And it's like, you waited this whole fucking trilogy to tell Harry this? You know how much heartbreak and fucking anger and sadness you could have saved if you just straight up told Harry, hey man, Spider-Man didn't kill your dad. His own glider did. His own glider stabbed him. Like, come on, bro. Like, you couldn't have told them a lot earlier. You told them last minute when, like, Mary Jane is in danger and Peter is off to risk his life to fight Sandman and Venom. Like, come on, bro. You could have saved so much, but, movie, because if you told them earlier, we probably wouldn't have all these things. And then the death of Harry Osborn, the fucking saddest moment in this trilogy. Holy crap. Because it's a character you've been with since the beginning. And then for him to just get taken out like that, it's fucking sad. It breaks my heart, damn near. But yeah, Spider-Man 3, like I said, a mess, but a fun mess. And so all in all, which one is the better movie? An ending to their trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises or Spider-Man 3? I'm going to give it to Spider-Man 3 just because I have a little bit more fun with it. And with Dark Knight Rises, I'm just like, whatever with it. And it doesn't help when a tragedy happened in Colorado to where during the screening of The Dark Knight Rises, there was a guy who claimed to be the Joker, shot up an entire movie theater, and it claimed the lives of innocent victims. And so it kind of puts a damper on the movie when you watch it, because what happened, and I'm not trying to, reflect on real life, but it's just sad. But even if that never happened, I never was a big fan of Tom Hardy's Bane. He does what he does with the role, I can accept it. I think he does have his moments where he shines. But my biggest thing with this movie is just, Talia al Ghul, the runtime, everything just feels rushed to where Bruce Wayne is all of a sudden back into Gotham. It's like, well, how did he get from the desert to Gotham, if the world believes he's dead? Because someone's going to stitch him out. And Bane said in the movie, any outside help comes, then he's going to blow up Gotham. And so, yeah, when it comes down to it, I prefer Spider-Man 3. And so now, the question is, which trilogy is the best one? Which one do I prefer? The Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy? In the end, I do prefer Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, and it's not just because nostalgia glasses aside. The Dark Knight trilogy does have some aspects to where it is better than the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, but when it really boils down to the point, I really think the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is the best one, because if it wasn't for the first Spider-Man movie, I really do believe a lot of these comic book movies and Marvel and DC wouldn't exist. I don't think Batman Begins wouldn't have existed if the first Spider-Man movie wasn't a hit. Like I said, that first Spider-Man movie, if you love it or hate it, you got to give it props for saving the comic book genre and for giving us a lot of comic book movies. So that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I'm glad we're back with season 2. We're going to get back to our movie reviews. Izzy's going to be in the next episode. Our next franchise where we're going to cover is going to be a surprise, so stick around. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace out, everyone.